Welcome back to the Takeout. Obviously, Democrats want to win the House and the Senate in the midterms. And to do that, they need to project a unified front, or so the theory goes. But there are tensions between some Democrats and progressive Democrats. They're kind of clawing and fighting with each other. We saw a cluster of Democratic socialist victories last week in New York City. Is that a big thing, a New York thing, or a nationwide possible trend? Well, Michigan might give us some insight into that. It holds primaries on August 4th. State Senator Mallory McMorrow, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, and Dr. Abdul El-Sayed are vying for the Democratic nomination for the Senate seat, being vacated by incumbent Gary Peters. Earlier today, I spoke with El-Sayed, who is considered the most progressive candidate. Please take a listen. You are currently leading in the polls. The primary is August 4th. So let's do a thought experiment. You become the Democratic nominee for Senate. So let's go over some things that Mike Rogers, the likely Republican nominee, and Republicans who've already reserved $45 million in advertising are going to say about you. That you want to defund the police because you've tried to delete posts from 2020 saying you want to do just that. Do you?
Let's talk about what I'm going to say about them, because that's the thing that Democrats tend to get wrong. We're so worried about what they're going to say about us that we forget that we also have mouths that work. So Mike Rogers is a guy who's never met a pharma lobbyist he didn't love. Like, he gets really mad when you call him a pharma lobbyist, but he spends so much time lobbying around with pharma lobbyists that you wonder whether or not he wanted to be one. And he hasn't explained how he made $14 million and moved to a McMansion in Florida. But during his time in Congress, because of the influence of the pharma lobby on him and the hundreds of thousands of dollars he took, this guy voted to raise prescription drug prices I don't know how many times, then helped to architect the legislation that turned into the opioid epidemic. I'm looking forward to forcing him to answer that question to Michiganders who lost family members, both because they could not afford their medication and because they died of opioid overdoses. I'm a doctor who rebuilt the health department, eliminated medical debt, and made sure that families had Narcan when they needed it. So I like my chances on that one. Then let's talk about his trouble with Donald Trump.
But if I'm a Michigander and I say, wait a minute, I hear you, and I get you, and I'm locked in on all those issues. But I do care what you think about funding police and what you said
what I'd say
years
is,
ago.
I was a Wayne County health director. And when the juvenile detention facility was in shambles, I declared a public health state of emergency to rebuild it. I raised everyone's salaries and wages immediately 35% so we could keep the folks who were leaving so that we could staff the facility. So if folks want to talk about what I said, I'm just going to point to what I did. Right? When I had the opportunity to make sure that folks were safe in the facility, both the youth that were there and the people working there, by making sure that we could staff it appropriately, I did exactly that. So I'll let my record do the talking. And we're going to let Mike Rogers' record do his talking.
And they will probably say you hang around with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker has said things that are virulently anti-American, they would say, and anti-Semitic. Do you have any regrets about Hassan Piker?
Well,
you know that's going to be an issue.
Major, I'm hanging out with you. I don't know everything you've said.
Right.
I'm sure you've said some things I disagree with. You've said some things I agree with. It tends to be in the real world, we hold people accountable for what they said, not what somebody around them said. And it's this funny gotcha game that Democrats love to play and Republicans love to play, which I think people are sick and tired of in politics. So if you want to play this game where you're going to hold me accountable, like, guilt by association based on something that somebody else said, I'm just going to make sure that people know what Mike Rogers has said, what Donald Trump has said, which he so desperately sought an endorsement from and can't seem to figure out how to shake because, Donald Trump's approval rating is in the gutter. Everything Donald Trump touches turns into trash. So I want to make sure that the broader public understands that about him.
Let's talk about something I experienced when I was in Dearborn, Michigan in 2024. I talked to voters there who were becoming increasingly estranged, and some described as completely estranged from the Biden administration and Kamala Harris over Gaza. And they used the word genocide. You have used the word genocide.
I like to use words that meet the definition that I use them for, so yes.
Right. And there is a United Nations Genocide Convention adopted in 1948, defines genocide as any 5 acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Explain to my audience why you believe Israel is guilty of that in Gaza. Because it argues it is not systematic. It is in pursuit of larger security concerns.
I'll point you to human rights organizations in Israel itself who call this a genocide. I'll point you to the fact that the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, have all rallied around the notion that what has been done is a war crime under the definition of genocide. So it's not just me. It's not just the people in Dearborn. This is just a word that ought to be used when public officials in a country say that they want to annihilate a people as a function of where they live and what their ethnic and religious identities are, and then carry out the systematic bombing of them, their kids, their schools, their hospitals, the annihilation of any opportunity to actually live a dignified life in that place again, and do so after having said that they were going to do it. I don't know what else to call that except for a genocide. Like when you target the Palestinian people as a function of their being Palestinian, and then try to move them into neighboring countries because they speak the same language, you commit war crime after war crime targeting their infrastructure, their schools, their hospitals. I don't know what else to call that. I mean, I guess, Major, what I'd say is what else would you call that except for trying to tiptoe around the interests of the foreign government who did it? I mean, what's the other word?
And that word and the willingness to say it has, in many races, possibly also in this one that you're involved in, had a galvanizing effect with younger voters. Why do you think that is? This
is a moral Rorschach test. Like, if you can't identify the systematic murder of tens of thousands of kids as a genocide, and then you want to say that you're a fighter for human rights and dignity, that's just hypocrisy. So I just think that if you can't call the most heinous violation of human rights what it is, it's hard for me to believe that you're going to go and fight the Trump administration or fight the pharma CEOs or fight the health insurance CEOs who are making my life unlivable.
You can catch my full interview with Abdul El-Sayed. It runs almost 30 minutes on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Quick note, all the other Senate candidates in that race, welcome to that same treatment here in studio.